An important part of D&D is magical items. But it's important to know what the magical items really represent. They represent the carrot to the stick, the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, the cold glass of lemonade after slaughtering an entire cave's worth of goblins for the sin of smelling bad. Part of why people go on adventures is the promise of treasure. You know, honestly, if after exploring 3 caves filled with deadly traps, ugly monsters, vicious fiends, and vile, gigantic dragons, if I was still dirt poor, I might hang up my sword and spellbook and possibly just go back to working at my parents' farm because, hey, at least then I know where my next meal is coming from. And the same goes for your players. By the time they're level 5, they expect to have a handful of magical items to share between themselves, so they can add it to, you know, their own story and brag about. You know, haha, I've got a cooler weapon than you. Fuck you, little bitch. That's what you get for being a mage. You don't know how to use a sword. Fuck you. That sort of thing, right? A warrior wants to have his own magical sword that he can name and that can add to his own legend. And a wizard wants a cool magical wand that he can pretend is as cool as the warrior's sword. And a rogue wants to steal the mage's wand because he's not going to try and steal the warrior's sword because there will be actual consequences to that. And there's also the barbarian, and he probably wants something dumb like a concussion or something. But let's sit down and discuss how you can make awesome magical items for your friends that they'll instantly fall in love with. But first, don't forget to like the video and comment something for the algorithm. I appreciate it greatly and it helps a lot. But, now that the YouTube speak is out of the way, let's get right into it. Disclaimer, this is, as always, my own opinion. These are my own ways of doing things. You can do things differently, you can disagree. Share all of these thoughts in the comments. I appreciate them greatly. There are 3 factors that you need to know about for every magical item. What type of item it is, why the item was made, and how it works. What type of item basically just refers to whether it's a suit of armor, or a magical weapon, or even just a wondrous item, like a ring, or a little statuette that summons a magical creature to assist you, or a deck of cards, or something. And the rarity of the item. The rarity of the item refers both to how common it might be in the world, but also its power level. An uncommon item might be something as simple as a potion of healing, and a legendary item might be a Vorpal sword that can fell a Balor in a single strike, right? The why is a little bit more complex, and in my opinion, it's the most important thing. From the why, you get the what and the how. The why is who the item is for, both in-world, referring to the original creator, usually an NPC, whether it be a mercenary, or just a retired soldier, or even a mage, or, I don't know, a farmer who has a ring that increases his constitution so that he can farm all day, and he's inherited it since, well, ever, right? Like, it's been in his family since as long as he can remember. But also the player that you intend to receive this item should it end up in the party's hands. Sometimes there are items that you don't necessarily intend to give to the player, but it's important for this item to exist for the purpose of the story. Like, say, there's a cursed magical ring that has transformed somebody into a werewolf, and so now it comes down to the adventurers to save this person from this cursed item, or to just, you know, fucking kill them. Who knows? Hey, I'm not the one deciding how your party behaves, and honestly, neither are you. The other part of the why is what it's meant to do. We've already kind of discussed this, but, you know, there's the ring that belongs to the farmer with the constitution. There's the cursed item or necklace or ring or whatever that turns you into a monster. There's, you know, just a sword whose only purpose is to enhance the proficiency of the user. It's, in essence, a +1 weapon. Or a +1 armor. But, in my opinion, such items are boring. It's much more interesting to have something that at least, you know, has a stored spell. Something that adds a little bit more sum to it, you know? Finally, the how. And the how just refers to the mechanical use of the item, whether it be providing an enhancement bonus to the player's attack, spellcasting, or armor, storing spells, boosting ability scores, or just providing unique benefits dependent on the item. Personally, I find that it's next to impossible to discuss how to make a magical item without discussing one or all of these factors. So the way that I'm going to go about it in this video is I'm going to bring up some examples of my own previous items that I've created in my previous campaigns that were very popular amongst my players, and I'm going to explain the item. I'm going to explain why I added it, when I added it, and I'm going to just deconstruct items of that type so that you can understand for your own campaigns in the future how, why, and when to add certain items to certain campaigns and for certain characters, right? It's not always about how strong the item is, sometimes it's about when. So let's start with the first example, that is the Dagger of Necromancy. Now, this is a simple item. Just a regular +1 dagger that can turn a humanoid corpse into a zombie, under your control once a day by stabbing it into said corpse. You have full control of the zombie in question for so long as the dagger remains embedded in the zombie. Pull out the dagger, the zombie is still there, but now you no longer have control over it. This specific item was found by the party after defeating a fledgling necromancer who was using this dagger to slowly resurrect a cemetery so as to take over a nearby village. The necromancer himself had other means of controlling the zombies, and so he just needed the dagger to resurrect them. The dagger provides a low-level player with a single use of what is essentially a third-level spell, meaning that its value is very limited, but it's still a very good item to give to a party that is either very low-level or lacks a caster that can cast such spells. If you give this to a high-level party, well, it's just a zombie, CR1, actually less than CR1, but it's too weak. It's not going to do much. At the most, it's going to be almost like a bit of a pet for the party, and while that's cool, it's uninteresting, especially if you already have a wizard in the party that can cast Animate Dead. You end up just giving your players a reward that isn't rewarding, and that's uninteresting. I ended up giving this knife to my players at level 2, which was a very fun reward for the necromancer of the party, who was a death cleric, as it allowed him to have access to a feature that he would only have at level 5, when he was still level 2. This made him very happy, and it made the rest of the party excited because they figured, hey, we're going to get rewards that are going to make us feel stronger than we are. And I try to follow that philosophy when I make my items. I want the magical items that the party earns to be something that they could not access yet, or that improves what they are at that moment. The second example that I have for you is a little bit more complex. The Butcher's Knife and Cleaver set. These are a paired set of weapons, a +1 scimitar and a +1 hand axe. The axe makes targets bleed for 1d10 damage at the start of each of their turns. This does not stack. And the scimitar heals the wielder for the damage dealt by its weapon dice on hit, not including modifiers, meaning that you would be healing 1d6 damage per hit. This item was recovered by the party after defeating a vampire's chef, a half-ogre vampire spawn who used these tools to great effect. In fact, I still remember, the party was level 5 by the time they reached this boss, and they almost died. In fact, the final person standing was a ranger who was afraid of being a little bit too weak, and he ended up getting a really cool moment taking out this half-ogre. But this set was actually created specifically for the party's Blood Hunter, whose damage output and survivability was falling short of the rest of the party, and the player was getting a little frustrated. And so I added this specifically so that he would feel a little better. And by giving a tailored item like this, I was able to immediately re-engage him and allow his character, whose main gimmick is spending his own health to use his abilities, to recover some hit points in combat and thereby stay in the fight. This was especially important because this was a very difficult campaign. This was a rather hardcore campaign. I clarified right at the start to these people, hey, this is going to be a difficult fight, pretty much just a boss rush. You're going to level up every session, but you're going to feel like those levels matter. You're going to feel rewarded. I'm going to give you magical items every single time, and you're going to need those magical items, and you're going to be getting these things for a very good reason. And by engaging with this player's abilities in order to tailor an item to them, I was able to compensate for something that he lacked while also leaning into something that he was good at. In this case, I healed him so that he could spend the health using his abilities without being afraid. It's a rather simple thing, but a lot of DMs do forget it. Warriors, as in fighters, barbarians, paladins, rangers, etc., they like getting nice weapons and armor. Wizards like getting unique spell scrolls that they can copy, and rogues like special use items that they can use. And by the way, when I said that wizards like getting unique spell scrolls, make unique spells for your wizards. Wizards don't need magical items as much as everybody else, but they do need unique spells that make them feel cool. That's like the cool thing about being a wizard, making your own magic. Talk to your wizard players. Make their own spells with them. It's like crack to them, straight up. The final weapon that I want to show you guys is the most powerful weapon that I've made so far. Like, this is a weapon that threw the balance of the campaign on its head. This was a different campaign than the other two items, but it was an item that was added very close to the end, and it was a very powerful weapon. It's a +2 longsword called the Revenant Blade. It deals necrotic damage instead of slashing, and it bypasses any armor or shield worn by the target, essentially treating its target as if it's wearing nothing at all, unless they have natural armor or magical protections. The sword was recovered from a Death Knight after his defeat and redemption. The Death Knight corrupted a Sunblade to be used against the heavily armored paladins that would have normally been sent to strike him down. I made this weapon to be the final offhand sword for a high-level Oathbreaker paladin who was trying to reconcile his desire to protect the innocent with his desire to not be chained by the decrees of a holy order, leading him to wield a Sunblade in tandem with the Revenant Blade. The specific player was kind of going for a Revan-esque aesthetic, so I figured two lightsabers of a kind would fit the vibe, and the player was extremely pleased with it. In fact, one of the things that he stated was his favorite part of the character was the fact that he could dual-wield swords, and one was a Sunblade and one was a, evil Sunblade for all intents and purposes. It even served him quite well, as it kind of allowed him to feel as though he had an almost unfair advantage no matter what we were fighting, so long as it wasn't like, beasts and magical monstrosities that had natural armor, because if we were fighting undead, he had the Sunblade, and if we were fighting human opponents who wore armor and other sorts of physical protections, he had the Revenant Blade. Now, these three items were items that were created to provide an advantage to the player. They are meant to make the player immediately feel stronger, whether it be by providing them with a feature that they normally wouldn't have yet, compensating them for a feature that they do have but that has a high cost, or giving them something that they feel is an unfair advantage. Now, it's important to note that I threw my fair share of natural armor at this guy and people using magical protections that the Revenant Blade didn't bypass, but still, it's important to not, invalidate the items that the players have, right? So do let them feel like they do have that unfair advantage, right? If you're going to give your fighter a Flame Tongue sword that deals fire damage, maybe add in a few trolls to the campaign so that that fighter can feel, haha, you fool, I have a fire sword, you fucking bitch, die! It's really cool to do that. If you give them a Frostbrand, maybe throw in a couple more fire spells that fighter's way. Let him know that, haha, I am resistant to fire now because of this awesome sword. That sort of thing. And, if somebody has, I don't know, wings of flying, throw in a couple of flying enemies so that they can fly up and fight them. That being said, if somebody has an item that they are not using, maybe throw in those enemies, because they have the answer, but if they don't use it, it's on them. And then you can say, wait, it's not my fault you guys died, it's his fault. Everybody get mad at him. But it's important to remember that not every magical item is made for combat. Hell, not every magical item is made to be useful. Some items are the bucket of non-reaction, which is a bucket that does not react. That's it, that's all it does. It's just a bucket, and it doesn't react to anything you do. No matter what you do to it, it doesn't react. quite an impressive magical item, if I do say so myself. Another one is the Rod of Not Moving, which, while having the appearance of an immovable rod, actually paralyzes anyone who activates it until someone, probably not whoever's been paralyzed, presses the off switch. Fun stuff. With magical items, the sky's the limit, and honestly, the only rules you need to follow are your own. So long as your players are having fun and getting their laughs in, that's all that matters, and you're doing a good job. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know if you have any magical items that you favor or that you really like. Like, personally, every time I play a fighter, I want 3 weapons. I want a Flame Tongue, I want a Vorpal Sword, and I want a Dancing Sword. These are the things that I want. Like, Vorpal Swords are my babies, right? I fucking love Vorpal Swords. I love the fact that somehow, somewhen, I'm gonna roll a nat 20 when the DM doesn't want me to, and I'm just gonna fucking decapitate something, and we're not even gonna talk about it. It's just gonna fucking die, and it's gonna be awesome, and I'm gonna be happy, and everybody's gonna laugh, and the DM is gonna be like, no! And it's happened to me multiple times, right? One time, I gave a monk a Vorpal Sword. She fucking decapitated a boss. Because I forgot to give that boss legendary actions. And I was like, fuck! Alright. That boss wasn't even supposed to like, fight them to the death. The boss was gonna, like, halfway through, he's like, okay, don't kill me, I'll fucking help you. Nope, she's dead. Conversation over. Hey, she still talks about it, so that's what matters, right? It's all about moments. And the DM doesn't create the moments, the DM creates the world and the tools for the moments to happen. The players create the moments. Unfortunately, they don't really have control over those moments. But share your own stories, share your own favorite magical items. But with all that being said, I'll see you guys next time. Have a good one. Cheers.